Shut the f*** up! Johnny Spots would just don't know when to stop! Yeah! And if you don't like it, you better take your ass up to the snooty box, cause this is the loud spot! Okay, see you later.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Loud Spot. I'm your host, Sebastian Cosby, right out of Oklahoma City. Today we have a very special episode for you guys. We have the band Dishwalla. What's going on, fellas?
Hello.
Hey. And then,
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Then we have Miss Ava Gore who set this all up. So hi, Ava, and thank you, and I hope you're doing well today.
I am. Thanks.
Awesome. The band Dishwalla, I've learned since you guys are going to be on the show, is actually a household name. Like, everywhere knows who Dishwalla is.
Well, I think what's cool is like a bunch of people's moms knew who we were, and then that next generation of kids now know who we are.
Yeah. So let's talk. I want to jump into the tour that never happened in 2020.
Coronavirus.
But it was important because it was their 25th year anniversary, right?
It was an important year to tour. It was, it was not. I wouldn't say it was an important year to tour. It was just a significant year to tour. And then, we've got to postpone that, obviously.
Yeah, and then you guys came out with your last album was 2017?
Was it? Was it that long ago?
It was, yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Time for another record.
Yeah, you guys have a new single coming out, according to George.
Oh, George, you went and you slipped out the secret sauce there.
I think the quote was, "You can say whatever the F you want."
Yes, that's exactly right. You can't say whatever you want.
When you text me late at night and go, "Hey, we're going to do this podcast. What do you want me to say?" and I'm half asleep, I text back, talk about whatever the F you want. I guess that's my default response.
My default is to promote the band. So anyway, yeah, we got the single coming out.
That's the best this summer. And by saying it, now it has to happen, right?
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Oh,
well, good. We're glad we forced you to have to come out with an album or a new single, anyways, this coming summer. That's awesome.
I think we're too lazy to do a full record during COVID. I think it's just going to have to be a bunch of songs instead of a record. That I don't think anyone does a whole record in their sweatpants. I don't know. Not me. I'm too lazy.
I really don't think any bands nowadays are coming out with albums anyways. I think the kind of the new thing. See, the thing is from 1995 is that's when the album came out with Counting Blue Cars, but the single dropped in 1996, right?
Right.
Is that how that worked? So I think now it's completely different where you just drop singles and then I maybe eventually drop an album.
Yeah, that's what we were doing.
You just keep re-releasing the same song over and over again. Released one version, then the remix, then the lyric video, then in another language, then bring it all back for a 1 year since we released the song and then release it again.
Counting Blue Cars was actually biggest in Germany before it was ever known in the States. We put the record out there first. So the whole album and especially that song blew up there. And then at the same time, it blew up in Brazil. So it was all over these different weird places. Philippines was another before it was ever even really big in the States. And so we'd always talked about doing a Brazilian, a Portuguese version or a German version, which would have sounded really super weird. So we never did it, but it would have been cool. It would have been sound like when he goes back in the day, they would dub 90210 was the big show back then, so they would dub that over in German, and it sounded like old war movies. So that's probably what the song would have sounded like too.
That's cool. So take us back to when did the band originally get signed?
95, I think 94, 95.
It was 94, I think. When 94? Early 94.
Yeah, because then the Carpenters thing was 95, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so take us back to 1994, 1995. The band started. You're getting all this hype. What was it like to, I guess, at one point realize that your band's really onto something big and you're getting a tour? What was the feeling of your first big tour signed to a record label?
Well, the first tour was with Better Than Ezra, and we kind of had, we didn't have a 0 to 60 thing because we had played around LA forever and Santa Barbara. But then all of a sudden we had this record in the can and they're putting us on a plane. And I can't remember. Do you remember where the first show was, Jim?
Michigan. Yeah.
That's right. Michigan. Yeah.
Blind Pig.
The Blind Pig. That's right. Whoa. And we kind of already had a little bit of steam because we did this Carpenter's tribute album and had that It's Going to Take Some Time thing happening. But really, like, we just kind of hit the ground running. And I would say, I think it was like 2 years from that start date that we were out on the road. It was 600 shows in 2 years that we did.
Jesus, 600 shows in 2 years?
Yeah.
You were that's like a like a show every other day almost, right?
Yeah, we were doing 4 to 5 days a week, and we'd be out like 2.5 months at a time, and we'd be home for about a week to 10 days, and then go out again, and then we'd have to then you did that, then you go to Europe for 3 months, without coming home at all. And then there were also the in stores, like the Tower Records performances, and you go into 3 radio stations in the morning. So really, the 600 shows that Polestar counted were just the ones that you actually were booked at a venue. But the Tower Records in store and the radio stations in the morning, they didn't count that. So it was probably more like 900 appearances in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, we do 4 or 5 a day sometimes.
Yeah.
So you guys took a long break from kind of being Dishwalla. What's it like now, kind of, getting back in the groove? I mean, it's been a few years, obviously, but it was a long time in between.
You mean pre-COVID or COVID, like now?
I can't even think
Pre-COVID.
about pre-COVID times. It feels like an eternity ago.
That seems like a lifetime ago. But we did nothing but Dishwalla for like 15 years straight. And so then we got to a point where like, okay, I can't do this anymore. This just has to like park for a little bit. So we took a break for a couple of years and then came back, started doing shows. That's when Justin first came on in 2008. He walked in on a 1 week notice and sang for 70,000 people at Rock Fest.
Good job.
And nailed it. And we're like, what the hell? Okay, we got a singer. So that's kind of, ever since then, it's been kind of on and off because everybody's got different projects and live stuff going on. So, there's a lot of different, everybody's got a lot of different irons in the fire now. So, we do it when we can, and it's always awesome to do. We're overdue for another record. But
I think the older you get, probably the harder it is to get a whole band back together, especially when it comes to touring. I do want to ask Justin a question. Did you know the band before joining Dishwalla? Were you guys already friends?
Yeah, I knew him for a few years. I knew Jim. I was in another band before Dishwalla, and Jim, he co-produced and engineered and recorded a record up in Weed with Sylvia Massey, and that's how I really got to know Jim. But I knew Jim before that from the band. I used to have a studio in Montecito, and Dishwalla came in and back in the day and used it to do some album prep and rehearsals there for a couple weeks, and that's when I really got to know them pretty well. And
that was pre-production for Opaline record. It came out in 2000, so that was a long time ago.
Wow. Yeah. So and being kind of a local Santa Barbara kid myself, I grew up, Dishwalla was omnipresent. They were the hometown guys, the bands, when I was in high school, Dishwalla was all over MTV and was like the biggest band around from our town. I mean, you had Ugly Kid Joe and some bands that came later, and obviously Toad the Wet Sprocket was around that time, but I mean, Dishwalla was it, man. So I definitely knew of them, and you always would hear rumors, Dishwalla's rehearsing at this place, or Dishwalla made it, they're over here. We heard, there's always rumors of what Dishwalla was doing, and it was this mysterious thing, back in the day, but I feel like I've known them forever. I feel like I've known you guys forever. I also feel like I haven't seen you in forever. I'm glad. I'm glad, Jim. I'm glad to see you're like shaved and like.
Oh yeah,
you look well. Sometimes we don't see Jim for 2 months, and we get together. You know, we have some gigs, and then we first time we see each other in months, like at the airport when we're loading into the bus or whatever's happening, and like Jim will step off and he's like, "What?" It's like that meme. What year is it? He's got a beard and his hair's all like, "Oh man, you got to come down off the mountain sometime."
I live in the middle of nowhere in the woods, so.
That's fun. Has the band planned? I know you guys are coming out with a new single at least. Have you already talked about plans of going back out on tour since you couldn't tour last year? Has it been rescheduled or talks about rescheduling?
Are you saying plans or arguments about when we're going to do this?
Has it been arguing about who should go on, if you guys should or not?
I'm not
should
going to
tour?
name names. I'm not going to name names, but I'm just saying, you know, it's hard to get everybody on the same page. One, and also it's hard for me to field phone calls from our agent who's crying on the phone saying, "When are you going to start touring again?" But no. But we're going to do it. You know, I think that a bunch of our friends, everyone's starting to take early gigs in even June. I'm starting to see a few dates in July and into the summer, and we're going to just see how that goes for everybody. Yeah. And then, you know, we'll jump back in the deep end and do a tour probably. I mean, I'm not scared. I got 2 shots.
I did find do you have something to say?
Yes, I have a question for George that isn't really band related.
What is that?
Is Rock Shop still a thing? Because I miss Rock Shop so much.
You know what? It hasn't since COVID, but
that makes sense.
Found a new location. It's the building below Soho, and it's much bigger, and it's going to come back probably a little closer to where it started, like where it was just a few of you. And not a huge, like 25 people thing, just because they can't have that many people. But yeah, it's still a thing, and it's still
awesome.
Yeah. And so what that is? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So I've known George for a long time now, and Rock Shop Academy is like a music camp, and I used to go and like, I don't even know if I was even considered a counselor.
Well, you started out as just a camper, and then at the end there, when you were going to City College, for sure, a counselor.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Oh,
and you guys did a benefit show. I do want to talk about your tour in 2017 that you played with some really cool bands, but I did find this really neat version of Chasing Blue Cars that I think is the newest one recorded in New York was it Paste Studios or something like that?
That actually was a very busy day for us. We had a lot of appearances, and there's a lot of funny stories that happened in between those. Like Jim trying to shove a keyboard into the back of an Uber to get across town, and the Uber driver driving away with my hand stuck in the handle because he didn't want to take the keyboard into it. So Jim and I had to push a keyboard like 15 New York blocks from Fox Studio or
just
something.
The two of you had to do that? Just the two of you?
The keyboard, George. Where were you?
What was I pushing?
You went back to the hotel and slept.
You took an Uber, man. Jim and I stopped for tacos. It was a whole adventure with the keyboard case.
That was awesome. It's like this thing that's normally like about this big by this big, but it happened to be like the size of a house with wheels and weighed like 250 pounds. And so it wouldn't fit in any car or cab or anything. And we tried to get it into this like Lincoln black car. And we got it like halfway in and the driver was like, no, and literally tried to drive away with it. And then like pushed it out. Then it was like lying in the street. And then we just rolled it all the way back.
We stopped for tacos though, and they were delicious.
Yeah.
We really worked up an appetite. And we had like 3 appearances there. We had I thought we did